FM HD3.
You're listening to Talkline with Zev Brenner, America's premier Jewish broadcast on the air since 1981.
And now, here's your host.
Welcome back to the program. Zev Brenner, our guest. It's been a while since we've had him on, is Rabbi Dr. Natan Slifkin, director of the Biblical Museum of Natural History. He's popularly known as the Zoo Rabbi, born in England. He's written books on evolution, got himself in some hot water with some of the leading rabbis, but he's still outspoken and speaking all over the world, including about Judaism, science, zoology, and also about the divide between the Haredi community and the nationalist Zionist community, that T. Leumi one. Rabbi Dr. Natan Slifkin, thank you for joining us.
Hi, it's good to be back on the show.
Good to have you back in. Since your last time you had this new museum, tell us about it.
Yeah, so I opened the museum 10 years ago. It's about the animal world of the Torah. A combination, it's kind of a combination of a zoo and a natural history museum, because we have a lot of live animals also. All the smaller animals of the Torah we have as live animals. The larger ones are taxidermy exhibit. And there's several different exhibit halls, and people learn all about the identities of the animals of Tanakh and their symbolism, their role in Jewish history, also some laws relating to these topics like kashrus and the laws of kosher shofars. It's a very interactive and engaging experience.
And especially after October 7th, I think it's been helpful to some of the victims to go to the museum and really relax a little bit, right?
Yeah, well, right after the war started, we decided to open. There were a lot of evacuees in the center of the country, from the north, from the south. So we decided to open the museum for free to those people. We had donors subsidize the visit for them. And we've also been running animal-assisted therapy programs. And, the entire museum experience is therapeutic in terms of the hands-on with the animals. So we've been working on that. And the other thing we've been doing is that the message of the museum itself is about how the animals of Tanakh are the animals of the land of Israel, of Eretz Yisrael. Right? The lions, the leopards, the bears. These are not animals from New York. Right? And there were no lions in the shtetl. Right? All the lions of the Torah, of Jewish tradition, are animals from the land of Israel. So this is something that's very significant to stress at a time when so much of the world is delegitimizing Israel as just being, a bunch of European settler colonialists. So we're showing how, no, you look at the animals of Tanakh, of Jewish tradition, and it's all connected. It shows our indigenous connection to the land of Israel. You think about how common Ari is as a Jewish name. Ari, Aryeh. They didn't have lions, but it was all as a cultural memory from a time when we were living among lions in the land of Israel.
No, I think it's important, and especially good for children to learn about, animals and the connection to Judaism, to halacha. So it does provide a service. You get involved with evolution at all in the museum too?
Oh, no. So one thing, so as you mentioned, as people know, 20 years ago, I got into a little bit of trouble on that topic. But one thing I took from that is that each community has the right to define its own parameters of belief, parameters of what's acceptable. The Haredi community decided that reconciling Torah with evolution and things like that is a non-starter for them. So we respect that. So in the museum, we don't touch any controversial topics at all, nothing like that, and therefore, even though I write about things myself on my blog, and I still have my books on that, but the museum curriculum is something that's perfectly fine for all sectors of the population. And so we get people from across the board. We'll get Satmar Hasidim from Bnei Brak. We'll have tours that have a simultaneous, Yiddish translation. So the museum is something that's suitable for all audiences, and we're very careful to keep it that way.
Where is the museum located?
It's facing the entrance to Beit Shemesh.
And you get people from all over the country coming to see it. And how old is it?
Yeah, it's 10 years. We just celebrated our 10th anniversary. We also just celebrated our 200,000th visitor. And we get from the entire country because, within the road to Bet Shemesh from the main highway is a very fast, efficient road. It's very easy to get to it. We're just 7 minutes off the highway. So we pull from the entire country. Yep.
What I find interesting, getting back to evolution, is that you had based everything on Torah sources. You quoted the Ibn Ezra and others, and yet that got you into trouble as you look back and you say, Are you surprised then? Would it happen again today? Because there are a lot of information. There are a lot of commentators that do bring out different theories that are worthwhile to discuss.
Yeah, well, the even bigger issue was the question of, is everything in the Gemara scientifically correct? Or could Chazal, could the sages of the Talmud have relied on, for when it comes to matters about the natural world, could they have relied on views that were incorrect? And for that, and there were very clear sources saying that Chazal were not always correct, but those were considered to be not acceptable. So at the time, that was very shocking. Now it's not so shocking to me. And you have to understand that, the Haredi community is a certain approach they're trying to preserve. And therefore, even if, great authorities will say something that's contrary to that, even, Rambam himself, those things are considered to be just, off the table, unacceptable.
So obviously you would change your name, I remember the time, from Nathan to Nathan to separate. To make
no, so I was always called Natan. That's how I grew up in England, being called Natan. When I started publishing books, by then I went through I was in a very Haredi stage of my own life. I've been learning Haredi in Haredi yeshivas for many years, and I figured that Nathan was just a name that made more sense to use. And then after our books were banned, and I was trying to rebrand myself and make it clear that I was not out to target the Haredi world in my writings. So then it made more sense to go back to the name that I've grown up with and that I'm more comfortable with.
So, but you have also a blog where you're able to talk about what's on your mind. I'm talking about rationalist Judaism. I know that there's been a lot of issues in Israel dealing with the army and who should be serving in the army. And unfortunately, we've seen a lot of the Dati Lumi. So many talented, young, bright students have fallen in battle. Terrible, terrible tragedy. Yeah. I know people and families that are connected. So I know that you've written about the fact that there is a divide between that segment of the Orthodox community and the Haredi community who don't serve in the same kind of numbers in the army.
Yeah, so this is what I've noticed very interesting contrast between Israel and in America. In America, Frum Jews exist on a spectrum. Right, it could be even within one family. That you'll have, the kid who goes to Israel for a year or two, comes back and goes to college, and you have the kid who's in YU, or the kid who's in Landa, or the kid who's in Israel, or the kid who's in Lakewood. And there's no clear disconnect at any point. It's just a spectrum of religiosity, or whatever you want to call it. But what Americans don't realize is that in Israel, it's not like that. In Israel, the army issue creates such a divide, and as of this year, such an incredibly painful divide, that there is a fundamental split between the Haredi community and the Dati Leumi community. Whereas when you have hundreds of thousands of reservists who've been in the army, being called back again and again and again, a tremendous cost to their personal lives, to their family lives, to their jobs, to their health, and risking their lives. And the Haredi community is just, declaring, its political, its rabbinic leaders are declaring, we're not involved in that, count us out. So that's obviously a tremendous source of upset and hardship. And within the Israeli Dati Leumi community, people are just, extremely hurt, upset, resentful, angry. And sometimes it's a question of them leaving yeshiva, right? So there's many, there's 80 Hester yeshivas. And there's guys who are out of yeshiva because they have to be fighting in the army. While meanwhile, the Haredi community is saying that even our guys who are not in yeshiva shouldn't go to the army. Right? So it's not about Torah, right? Because there's guys in the Dati yeshivas who can't be in yeshiva because they've been called up for extra time in the army, whereas Haredim who are not in yeshiva are not going to the army. So it's not about Torah. So this is something that's very, very painful. But I think the American community often, because you don't have that sharp divide in a way of life in America, the Americans don't realize what the situation is here.
But you do have more of Haredim joining the army than ever before. Not just now.
Yeah, but we're talking a trivial percentage. We're talking 1%, 2%. The army this past year sent out several thousand extra draft notices to the Haredi community, and they got 100 people.
Which is
the numbers we're talking are absolutely minimal.
But the question, is how do you engage the Haredi community to become more involved in joining the army? I spoke to Eli Pali, the chairman of the Mishpacha magazine, a number of months ago, the Mishpacha magazine group, and he had an interesting solution, which was trying to engage the Federation and other Jewish groups that maybe instead of the age of 18, maybe the age of 25, Haredi men should be listed to Homeland Security, get them involved. In order to have any change, you have to have a dialogue. You can't just say you're going, the status quo existed for over 70 years. You can't just say status quo ended, we're going to go completely the other direction. It has to be some sort of way of accommodating.
Right. It's very hard. Unfortunately, it was very convenient for governments to accept Haredi support for their coalition and just acquiesce to a widespread exemption. And so definitely there's other people in Israel who share responsibility for this situation. It's very hard to know what to do. In terms of dialogue, the problem is that there's no real interest in dialogue. You know, the rabbinic leaders of the Haredi world have made it pretty clear that it's just an absolute no. So if there's no dialogue that's possible, then what do you do? So how do you force it? Maybe it cannot be forced, but certainly the simultaneous issue is the financial support. That if they're not going to contribute in this tremendously difficult national burden, they shouldn't also be paid to not contribute, be supported to not contribute to this national burden. That's something that's like, adding insult to injury, making it even more painful for the rest of the community, which is serving.
Well, I believe that there was a question of money being taken off the table. Some of the Gedolim went to America from Israel. They raised about $100 million in a very short period of time to compensate for whatever loss they may have for not getting government support.
Well, yeah, in part, yeah, but there's still, that's what's been going on in the Knesset the past couple of weeks, the fight over various types of funding.
So prior to October 7th, I think there was a better relationship between the Haredi community and the Dati Leumi community. I think after October 7th, is there a change? How is it being manifested?
Yeah. Absolutely, there's a change. In other words, previously people felt, okay, the right thing to do would be to go to the army, but whatever, it's not happening, and the more important thing is to try and bring the Haredi community into the economy, into the workforce. That's what's more important, thinking about Israel's, economic future, where you have a third of first graders in Haredi systems that are opposed to secular studies, opposed to careers. That's the more important thing to solve. But when you had this, and there's also the belief that the IDF doesn't need necessarily such a big army.
Well, the thinking was prior to October 7th was the Israeli army can't accommodate getting another 20, 30,000 Haredi soldiers.
Right. But then, a lot of those then we had October 7th, and, a lot of previous assumptions were destroyed. We realized that Israel really does need a very, very big army. We lost a lot of soldiers, right? Hundreds killed, thousands injured. There's a shortage now, right? There's a shortage of tens of thousands of combat soldiers. And the price being paid for it is by everyone else, by the reservists. And it's a terrible thing. It's a terrible thing that you have these people who are not 21-year-olds, that it's men in their 30s, men in their 40s, who are away from their wives and children, from their jobs. Why are their fathers of seven away from their jobs in the army when there's young fit 21-year-olds with doing nothing and they're available? So this is something that's been naturally has caused great resentment and frustration. Even people who were previously very sympathetic to the Haredi community, but this has created a terrible lack of achdus. This has created a terrible tear in the nation.
Would you say that this is more, it's pronounced in the secular society, but is it becoming just as vocal or worse in the National Religious Party?
Worse. It's more extreme. It's I would say the National Religious are more upset than the secular for a few reasons. Number one, the National Religious is that they're aware that this claim that if you're going to be a religious Jew, you can't be in the army. They know it's not true from themselves. And as a secular person might believe, yes, okay, maybe it's a conflict for a religious Jew to be in the army. But the religious Jews know that that's not the case. You got Talmidei Chachamim, you got Rabbanim, you got Rosh Yeshivas, you got people who are every spare minute, their nose in a sefer, and they're in the army. So they know that that's not a conflict to being in the army. And I think the other reason why I think the national religious are more upset is that they're the ones who were closer to Haredim beforehand, and sympathetic somewhat, and now they feel very, very let down in the hour of need. The Haredi community did not step up.
Our guest is Rabbi Dr. Natan Slifkin. As you heard, he's not afraid to speak out on some of the important issues of the day. He is the director of the Biblical Natural History Museum in Beit Shemesh, Israel. He's known as the Zoo Rabbi, born in England, and he's writes extensively on Judaism, science, and zoology. And we're looking at the divide in Israel between the Haredim, the ultra-Orthodox community, and the Dati Leumi, the national religious Zionist community in the Holy Land. We're going to be right back. Don't go away. Stay tuned. And when we come back, we'd love to hear from you. 212-769-1925. 212-769-1925. Email is a wonderful way to have your questions answered. Zev at talklinenetwork.com. Zev at talklinenetwork.com. And we're continuing, by the way, to give away 3 packs of Salamini from Mealmart. That's right. Just send us an email to zev at talklinenetwork.com. Please put Salamini in the background, and we will make sure you get it so we can deliver it to your home. I'm getting emails without your address and zip code. If you want to qualify, you must include that. That's zev at talklinenetwork.com, zev at talklinenetwork.com. And, of course, today is Sunday. We're also on WOR 710 on the AM dial and iHeart radio station, 9 p.m. Tonight, we'll look at a very interesting story about Benjamin Anthony. He has been served 4 times in the Israeli army, just did a 5th time coming back from Gaza, how he got into the Israeli army, born in England, beaten up by a vicious gang of Jew haters. They were not Muslims, they were whites. When he was 14 years old, they tried to kill his brother. They were out to kill Jews, and that changed his life, where now he's a big supporter of Israel. Among our guests today, Sunday, WOR 710 on the AM dial. And we're going to be right back. Don't go away. Stay tuned. This is the Talkline Network.
Did you know my mom's going to have a baby? She is? Will it be a boy? Or will it be a girl? We don't know yet, but we heard the heartbeat, and my dad said this is going to be someone very special. You mean like being a president? Or maybe a doctor? Well, probably maybe like a singer or dancer, I think.
Hello, my name is Marianne Koharski. I'm the director of Pro-Life Across America. We know every baby is a miracle and has the potential to do great things. This season, we hope you will consider supporting the work of Pro-Life Across America. We're non-political and totally educational. Your gift will help offer life-saving alternatives and pregnancy assistance to those in need. Visit our website at prolifeacrossamerica.org or like us on Facebook.
A baby's heart is beating 18 days from conception.
Are you looking to create extra income for yourself or for your family? Well, Talkline Network is looking for go-getters who are looking to generate more money by getting involved in the lucrative world of selling radio and TV time, as well as commercials and podcasts. You can work part-time or full-time. We pay high commissions for those that are motivated to sell radio and TV time. If you're interested, please contact us at 212-769-1925, extension 100, 212-769-1925, extension 100, or info@talklinenetwork.com. Ideal for students, for retirees, for housewives, anybody looking to generate extra income. Again, that's 212-769-1925, extension 100, or info@talklinenetwork.com.
Are you seeking legal expertise backed by decades of experience? Look no further than Gurriera, Feldman, and Williams. For over 20 years, our dedicated team has navigated the complexities of real estate planning, including wills, trusts, and estates, surrogate court matters, and landlord-tenant law. But what truly sets us apart? Our attorneys don't just represent clients. They invest their hearts in every case. Passionate, committed, and relentless. That's the Gurriera, Feldman, and Williams way. Call us at 212-533-6800 for a consultation. That's 212-533-6800. Gurriera, Feldman, and Williams, the compassionate lawyers.
Tired of slaving over a hot stove? Now you can enjoy the taste of homemade soup without the fuss. Milmart's new line of shelf-stable soups are double wrapped and ready to be used in any
620 WSNR, Jersey City.
Tired of slaving over a hot stove? Now you can enjoy the taste of homemade soup without the fuss. Milmart's new line of shelf-stable soups are double wrapped and ready to be used in any microwave and ready in just minutes. Perfect for the home or on the go. Choose from 4 delicious flavors: chicken, mushroom, barley, hearty vegetable, and chunky vegetable. New from Milmart homemade soups. It's like having a personal chef in your pantry.
You don't have to be famous to have a memoir, a book that tells the story of your life. This is New York Times bestselling author Michael Levin, and books are my babies. Your children, grandchildren, and future generations can only know you if you put your story down on paper. That's why I created Jewish Leaders Books, a place where we can tell our stories for our loved ones and friends today and for future generations tomorrow. We're the people of the book. Now it's time for your book. Whether you have a dream or a complete draft, visit jewishleadersbooks.com or call Zev Brenner at 212-769-1925, extension 100, or Zev at talklinenetwork.com. That's jewishleadersbooks.com, or reach out to Zev at 212-769-1925, extension 100, or Zev at talklinenetwork.com.
WNEW 102.7 FM HD3, the nation's only Jewish FM HD channel, is searching for dynamic and engaging personalities to host our morning and evening drive radio programs. This is your chance to connect with a vibrant community and share your passion for Jewish culture, news, and entertainment. If you have a voice that resonates and a love for radio, we want to hear from you. Call 212-769-1925, extension 100. That's 212-769-1925, extension 100, or email info@talklinenetwork.com today. See you on the radio.
Thank you for listening to this episode of
Talkline with Zev Brenner, America's premier Jewish broadcast, on the air since 1981. Please call us with your questions and comments at 212-769-1925. That's 212-769-1925. Or email us at zevbrenner@gmail.com.
Our back. Our guest is known as the Zoo Rabbi, British-born Rabbi Dr. Natan Slifkin, director of the Biblical Museum of Natural History. He teaches extensively on Judaism, science, and zoology. Got himself in trouble 20 years ago about evolution, and he's focusing on the religiously observant or the non-Orthodox community in America, which is called the Dat Leumi in Israel, and we're looking at the divide between the Haredi and the more modern Orthodox community. I guess the term
can I interrupt you there?
Right?
Sorry, Zev, can I interrupt you there?
Sure.
The modern Orthodoxy in America is not the same as Dati Leumi in Israel. It's different.
I know.
A lot of people think it's two very different things.
I guess people tend to call them that, but it's different. It's hard to define. They're in fact, when I went to the Israeli army, give out Shalach Manas a number of years ago, I saw a fellow wearing payas and it looked like, I guess, who you're a chassid, because I'm a chassid of Cook. So it's a different kind of, yes, I understand it's different. I guess people use the terminology of modern Orthodox when it really is different, but it's most akin to it, I guess. But
it's a problem because people go by appearances. You know, I have a neighbor who's very serious Torah. You know, and when he made Aliyah many years ago, he was on like the same the yeshivish end of YU. And when he came to Israel, he did something very smart. He said, I saw the people who looked like me, you know, he wore a hat and so on, you know, you should be side of YU. He said, I saw that the people who looked like me didn't think like me, and the people who think like me didn't look like me. So I made a decision to go into the community of the people who think like me and not the people who look like me. But a lot of immigrants, you know, don't do that. They just make the superficial mistake of take the people who look like them and, we must be hashkafically aligned, without realizing that in general, most Americans are much more hashkafically aligned with the Dati Leumi community than with the Haredi community.
Stanley in Forest Hills, thank you for waiting. Go ahead, Stan.
Stan is the name.
Stan, I said Stan. Stanley is an affectionate way of saying Stan.
I appreciate it, but my mother said stand when she put it on the certificate.
It's a good thing you're taking a stand. And go ahead, Stan.
Okay. I have two questions. The first is about your museum. I don't understand. Is this a religious museum or is it a museum of science?
Good question. It's a religious museum in that, it's essentially about what does the Torah have to say about animals. Science often sheds light on that, but it's essentially about what are the animals of the Torah, what is the Torah trying to teach us when it speaks in different ways about different animals. We're not trying to force a religious viewpoint on anyone. We have secular. I'm sorry?
Aren't you doing exactly that by doing a biblical? I'm not saying what you're doing is wrong or right, but you're doing a biblical analysis of the victim, like Noah and the ark.
No, well, that's not a topic we go into. We're talking more about the animal world of the Torah, but we have visitors from across the spectrum: Dati, Haredi, secular. Everyone comes and finds it fine. We're not, we're not telling anybody what they should believe or not. We're just telling you.
As you said, you've had a problem. You don't go into the history of the world and animals and evolution.
No.
Away from
we
that.
don't do any of that in the museum.
You stay away
into that at all.
Okay, that's what I thought. So it's just a biblical museum, and people can take it as they please. The second question.
It's about the animal world of the Bible.
The animal world of whatever you want to call it.
Well, that's what he calls us down. Yeah.
Well, I say, if you think about it, it's the interpretation of this particular museum of the animal world.
Stan, I'm getting worried. You sound too Talmudic for me. Go ahead.
No, I'm not Talmudic. I mean, I don't buy the idea, but go ahead. The second thing is this. We in the United States have something which I think called the draft. I was in the draft in the late 60s and had to go into the service. And then went to Vietnam and went in the military. The draft is an equal way for everybody, why doesn't the state of Israel develop a draft where everybody goes in and nobody complains?
How do you stop people from complaining?
Look, we're the United States. Because it's equal for everybody. Everybody has to go in. They pick up, let's say, if you're going to get volunteers, you only get volunteers when you get war. We don't have a draft anymore, sadly. But when we've been short on the military in this country over the last couple of years. As you said, Israel is short, I think, in the military in terms of, especially now. So why don't they develop a draft system where all people of Israel who are citizens are in it? Nobody then could complain.
I'm going to let Rabbi Slifkin respond, but I have to tell you, when they had the draft in the United States, they did have an exemption for religious studies. In fact, the Baal Tshuva movement, the Return to Judaism movement, was fueled by the fact by people who didn't go into the army, registered in yeshivas, and became religious. So, I'm just telling you what happened. It wasn't just Jews, Christians, and others. They had a lot of seminaries. People joined. There was a religious exemption, which they have in Israel. I'll let Rabbi Slifkin address the rest of it.
Sure, go ahead.
The problem is, you have a community of over 1 million people who say that we believe it's harmful to our way of life. In that our way of life is defined by being different from everyone else, being separate from everyone else. So this is something that's against our way of life, and we don't want to do it. And the fact that other people are suffering disproportionately, we don't care. We don't care. We're not going to let that. That's not a sufficient reason for us to change our way of life. And you've got a community of 1 million people with a lot of political clout. So how do you enforce the draft? There is a universal draft. They are liable to join, but there's no way of enforcing it.
What is the amount of people? For example, there are over. I've heard since the war there are over 300,000. Is that the normal amount that are in, or is that just towards war situations? Usually 100,000 are in the.
That's a war situation. I mean, it went up to close to 500,000 at the beginning of the war. Now I think it's down to about 300,000. It's a lot of extra because of the war situation.
When there's not a war, what's the usual amount of people that are in the military?
I think it's about 100,000, 150,000, as far as I recall, something like that.
Okay. Thanks so much.
Thank you for your call. Now, are you concerned because you got yourself in hot water when you wrote your book about evolution with the Haredi community, you and Chair with the books, they banned the books. Are you concerned speaking out so strongly as you are about the Haredi Dati Leumi divide, that again you get into the crosshairs of some of the religious authorities in the Haredi community?
Well, it's different now because the issue with my books is that my books were published within a Haredi framework. A Haredi publisher, Haredi rabbinic endorsements, so they were seen as like targeting the Haredi community. It was a threat in that way. Now that my books are not published with those rabbinic endorsements or with those publishers and so on, so it's kind of like off the radar. So hear me speaking out now. And by the way, the things that I'm speaking out about the army issue, so in the Israeli world, there's like many people saying this. It's only unusual in the English-speaking world for some reason. That's English-speaking people speaking out about it. But in the Hebrew-speaking world, there's many people in the Dati Leumi community saying exactly what I'm saying. And yes, and that's part of the tension and the conflict in Haredi society. But yeah, of course, the Haredim are against those viewpoints. But they're not going to go around, putting a cherem and all the Dati on the Dati Leumi community.
I guess it will work. And the irony is also, if I read my history correctly, in 1948, you had a lot of Haredim that actually served in the army.
Oh, absolutely. Agudas Yisrael, put out a Kol Koreh for young men to join and fight. Sure, this idea that the Haredi, whole-scale opposition to the army has always existed is a myth. In 1948, he didn't have it. Even after that, in the 60s, 70s, early 80s, it was quite common for Haredim to join the army. Really, it was only really after the Begin cut a political deal with the Haredi parties for an unlimited exemption, that way of life started for the community as a whole. You have to realize that, at the beginning of the state, when that famous deal was reached between Ben Gurion and the Chazon Ish, we're talking about 400 yeshiva students who were being exempt. It was a time when the Haredi community, the religious community, perhaps we should say, had suffered enormously during the Holocaust. They're much worse than everyone else. So there was a sense that we need to rebuild this. So we spare a couple of hundred yeshiva students. It wasn't the idea then of having an entire community, of having 100,000 people exempt from the army.
Well, I think David Ben Gurion's thinking is that that they won't last. You have 400 now; it's going to be a lot
he thought
less.
They wouldn't last.
Right. And it's just the opposite, that it grew in such great numbers, and and the labor and some of those other movements don't exist today. But you have the Haredi community growing strong.
He's not just growing, but growing exponentially, far greater than any other sector. Right? It's a third of first graders. So right now, in terms of the 18-year-olds, so it's about 15% of the population. And what happens when it gets to 20%, 30%, 40%, 50%? Who's going to be in the army? There's already a shortage. Who's going to be in the army as that percentage of the population grows?
But do you think that there's going to be some accommodation, because there is pressure from the Haredi community? You have some that are saying that there should be some, maybe those that are not learning should be the first. I mentioned Eli Pally from Mishpacha magazine, 25-year-olds should do homeland security and other work. So there are some thoughts.
Yeah, they're not going to become. That's a very, very small step to the solution. That doesn't solve. What the army needs is combat soldiers who are going to be in for 3 years. That's what the army needs. How this is going to play out in the future, very hard to see, very difficult to see. I think we're in for some very, very tough times ahead.
So on a practical level, you mentioned that the tensions are high between the Dati Leumi community and the Haredi community. On a practical level, what does that mean? Aside from the fact that you may read about it in some of the newspapers and hear about it on the radio or TV or social media, has other implications for the Haredi Dati Leumi dialogue relationship?
Sure. Oh, well, I mean, at the political level, where it's going to be much harder for the Dati Leumi political parties to be with Haredi communities in the government. At a social level, I can just tell you from my community, there's just a lot of upset. There's relationships that have been harmed, whereas it used to be that, you can have friendships, relationships across the Hashkafic divide, but now it's just too painful. In my shul, Dati Leumi shul, there's 80 kids in the army. And and the people in the shul talk about how painful it is when their children are away for months and months and months at a time. And for the Haredi neighbors, it's just life as normal. It's like there's no war happening, and that makes it much harder to have friendships.
No, the question is it just friendships, or is it a more practical level? Is there, for example, not patronizing certain stores, or not?
I wouldn't say stores, but certainly when it comes to fundraising, people outside of the Haredi community are say that we're not going to donate to Haredi institutions. If you don't believe in helping share this very challenging burden, then why should we financially support you? Or you can put it another way, that if you believe that you can replace material, physical support of the country by learning and davening, so okay, I'll learn and daven for you. Don't ask me for material support if you're not willing to give any material support.
So, but as far as has it affected economically the fundraising for some of these institutions?
That I don't know. I do know that many people in America, and appropriately so, are saying that no, we're not going to fund this. We're not going to fund this way of life. Israel is in a terrible situation. There's a terrible, terrible strain being placed upon the population, especially the reservists. It's being borne out disproportionately by the Dati Leumi community. The Haredi community has to step up, and we're not going to fund a lifestyle that does not believe in shouldering its role of responsibility here.
Now, the Dati Leumi community is also growing by leaps and bounds. You have also 8, 10, 12 children, correct?
Personally, 5 good ones.
5. Okay, but I'm doing in general. You see a lot of that.
Yes, it's not as fast. It's a slightly lower number of children at birth rate than the Haredi community. Obviously, it's higher than secular, a bit lower than Haredi.
Okay.
Just like in the Haredi community, there's a difference between Litvaks and Hasidim.
Oh yeah, what is the difference family-wise between Litvaks and Hasidim?
I don't know the numbers exactly, but Litvaks is slightly less than Hasidim.
Oh, interesting.
They have that in America too, no?
Well, the Hasidim have a lot of, but I think some of the Litvaks also have some of the yeshiva kids, right?
Yeah.
There should be hey, is there any science to it? We should do a sociology study.
Yeah, I'm sure there's statistics on that. So the Dati Leumi community birth rate is high. It's as an example of difference between modern Orthodox. I would imagine the Dati Leumi birth rate is higher than modern Orthodox, but still not as high as Haredi.
Well, in the United States, the modern Orthodox birth rate is not anywhere near the Haredi birth rate. And the old joke is tuition is a form of birth control. They say it jokingly, but maybe there's something to it as well. The lifestyle in Israel, the Dati Leumi, it's different.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Now you're speaking when you come to the United States and then Israel. I assume you're speaking more to the modern Orthodox communities.
Yeah, young Israelis and so on. Those are the kind of shuls I'm speaking at.
And what are the reaction? You're speaking about the museum and the biblical animals, and about you speak about evolution.
Yeah, usually I'm speaking on the more power of topics. The topics about animals and the Torah and so on. Especially now during the war, as I mentioned at the beginning, that I like to speak a lot about how the animal world of the Torah shows our connection to Eretz Yisrael. And in general, I have to say this show has been quite a little bit uncomfortable for me, that normally I try and separate very strongly these two aspects of what I do, right? Because the museum, the animal stuff, that's stuff that's just for all audiences, completely non-controversial. And when I'm speaking about issues to do with the Haredim in the army, that is not in my capacity as director of the museum. That's in a totally, personal capacity, not related to that at all.
No, I understand. And it's something which people feel passionately about on all sides of the divide.
Yeah.
People who are saying, well, hey, our sons are serving in the army, and why aren't yours? And they're saying, well, we have the status quo agreement. And it really boils down to the fact is that they have this agreement in place. If you want to change an agreement, it has to be done in a smart way, in a subtle way. You can't just say, agreement canceled, everybody to work, everybody in the army.
Right.
Right.
Right. I wouldn't hold, personally any young man who's grown up totally in a Haredi framework. It's very hard to expect him to suddenly go to the army. It's a very hard thing to expect. Really, the responsibility is on the leadership more, who should be recognizing the gravity of the situation, about how seeing what happened October. Everything changes. I think the world changed on October 7th. It can't just be life as before. Israel's security needs became radically different, and it can't just be life as normal.
But I would say that probably there are some leadership in the Haredi community that would be more accessible, more interested in having some of the, especially ones that are not learning to go into the army, but because you have some that are opposed to it, they're afraid to challenge those that say they shouldn't be going.
The voices opposing are the much louder, more prominent voices.
So I would assume that if they have some sort of accommodation, and I think the basic refrain that I hear, and I'm in America, so you different in Israel, is that, and you addressed it before to a certain degree, is that they're saying, well, you can't be Haredi, you can't be religious in the army. And the fact is, though, as the army may accommodate the Dati Leumi, but you would need more Mahadran kosher. You would need a whole different setup to have the Haredim be accommodated.
They can do it. They can do it. There's Haredi Hesti yeshivas now. There's a few. There's a whole new Haredi division, Chashmonayim. The army can accommodate Haredi sensitivities. There isn't much interest from the Haredi side on being accommodated.
But you said there's some effort. I did in Chashmonay, and there's some other efforts that are Haredi Hesti yeshivas.
Yeah. Sure, absolutely. One of my neighbors here, Rabbi Carmi Gross, American, he set up a Haredi Hesti unit, which is more in technology. He has a small Haredi Hesti yeshiva, and there's other things too. But this claim that the only reason the Haredi community isn't serving is because the army can't accommodate it is not true. The army can accommodate it, and most of the Haredi community, they're just not interested because they don't feel. Why would somebody go to the army? It's a hard thing to do. You go to the army because you feel this tremendous sense of national responsibility, right? Klal Yisrael needs you. But in the Haredi community, they don't really identify as part of the nation to that degree. They self-identify as their own separate community. Something that Jonathan Rosenblum used to write about is described as a lack of Klal Yisrael consciousness. They did that because they wanted to preserve their identity against the threats of the modern world, but it's gotten to an extent that now they don't feel a duty to the country. They feel more of a duty to retaining their own identity than to the security needs of the country. And that's where you get a situation like the Sephardic chief rabbi who said that we would rather leave the country than serve in the army.
But would you say that's because they're afraid, even though the Dati Leumi have shown you can be frum and observant and daven and learn and be in the army, but their perception among some of the leadership is that you go into the army and you're lost to Judaism? I'm just saying, it's not a right percent, but it's.
I don't think they're afraid of that because you see that, within the Hester framework, if you go within a Hester framework, my son's in Hester, right? So the chances of becoming, losing your religion are like insignificant. You're part of a whole yeshiva framework. You're not going to lose your religion. So I'm not sure if it's really fear of that. It might be fear of losing them as part of the Haredi community, that they won't, listen to all the directives of the Haredi community and they'll be more independent-minded in their decision-making. Or I think it might not be fear, just a lack of interest. We don't want to do this. Why should we do this? We don't feel any sense of obligation to do this.
Is it that maybe a small amount? I think probably has to do more with the fact that they're concerned about it. But let's take an email question. Let's go over here. Okay. Joseph writes, my daughter. Let me see over here. My daughter-in-law lives in Beit Shemesh. Her first question when she was asked for donations, do they go to the draft? If the answer is no, they get no donations. Okay, so that's what you've been saying.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact is, though, there has to be. How do you see yourself? How do Israel get out of this situation? Because the sides are pretty much drawn. How do we break the logjam?
I don't think there is a quick solution. I think the solution will come when there's enough, pressure from the country. Then it will be politically toxic for the Haredi parties to be part of the government, and with the funding. When the funding Haredi in the way of life becomes more difficult, so there'll be more of a pressure on the Haredi community to find, there'll be some people who gradually do it, who will try and find other ways to accommodate, to get state funding by having some kind of army programs, and slowly, gradually, you'll get something of a change. It'll never be as much of a change as needed, but there will be some change. But I think, unfortunately, the only answer will come as a result of funding.
Our guest, Rabbi Dr. Natan Slifkin. He is the director of the Biblical Museum of Natural History located in Beit Shemesh, Israel, known as the Zoo Rabbi. He talks about science and technology and zoology and Judaism. We're going to be right back. Don't go away. Stay tuned. And we'll try to get some more of your phone calls. 212-769-1925, 212-769-1925. You want to email zev@talklinenetwork.com, zev@talklinenetwork.com. I still got a bunch of Meal Mart's Salamini sticks. There are 3 packages, delicious flavors we're going to give away. So keep those emails coming to zev@talklinenetwork.com. Please include your name, address, and zip code. Then put Salamini in the byline. And a whole bunch, you're going to get 3 packers delivered to your home. That's zev@talklinenetwork.com, zev@talklinenetwork.com. We'll be right back.
Most people don't have enough life insurance. How do you know if you have the right amount, the right type, the most cost-effective policy to protect your family when you need it the most? Hi, this is Ann Lowy, independent life insurance expert for over 35 years. I help my clients navigate all that. And because I'm independent, my loyalty is to you, the client, not the big insurance companies. I'll help you get the best deal out there. After all, you go to a doctor when you need medical advice. You go to a lawyer when you want legal advice. You go to a rabbi for halakhic advice. You should go to an insurance professional to get the right policy for you and your family. Call me and I'll help you figure it all out. Again, my loyalty is to you, my client. Phone 646-335-5519, 646-335-5519.
Did you know my mom's gonna have a baby? We heard the heartbeat, and my dad said this is gonna be someone very special.
Hello, my name is Marianne Koharski. I'm the director of Pro-Life Across America. This season, we hope you'll consider supporting the work of Pro-Life Across America. Your gift will help offer life-saving alternatives to those in need. Visit our website at prolifeacrossamerica.org or like us on Facebook.
Tired of slaving over a hot stove? Now you can enjoy the taste of homemade soup without the fuss. Meal Mart's new line of shelf-stable soups are double wrapped and ready to be used in any microwave and ready in just minutes. Perfect for the home or on the go. Choose from 4 delicious flavors: chicken, mushroom, barley, hearty vegetable, and chunky vegetable. New from Meal Mart, homemade soups. It's like having a personal chef in your pantry.
Hi, this is Yaakov Searle from the Queens Jewish Link and Bukharian Jewish Link. I just want to thank all 350 people and our sponsors who participated in the networking event. Our newspaper is distributed all over Brooklyn, Manhattan, Queens, Long Island, and you can get a copy. And you're welcome to advertise with us to the vast audience that we have. And just call 917-549-6145, 917-549-6145 for any information concerning the newspaper or advertising. Thank you so much. Yaakov Searle here.
Most people don't have enough life insurance. How do you know if you have the right amount, the right type, the most cost-effective policy to protect your family when you need it the most? Hi, this is Ann Lowy, independent life insurance expert for over 35 years. I help my clients navigate all that. And because I'm independent, my loyalty is to you, the client, not the big insurance companies. I'll help you get the best deal out there. After all, you go to a doctor when you need medical advice. You go to a lawyer when you want legal advice. You go to a rabbi for halakhic advice. You should go to an insurance professional to get the right policy for you and your family. Call me and I'll help you figure it all out. Again, my loyalty is to you, my client. Phone 646-335-5519, 646-335-5519.
I'm inside. Tired of foot pain slowing you down? Hi, I'm Dr. Uriel Levy, a board-certified podiatrist with 33 years of experience, here to get you back on your feet. And great news, Brooklyn. I just opened up a brand new office in Flatbush at the 1911 Avenue L Medical Center of Dr. Kogel. I specialize in orthopedic and medical foot issues, crafting and prescribing custom-made orthotics from between 75 to 100 patients every week. That's a lot of happy feet. For those who have Medicaid managed care, orthopedic shoes would be covered if you are in medical need of custom-made orthotics. Whether it's plantar fasciitis, bunions, or just everyday aches, don't let foot pain hold you back. Also, I practice reflexology, combining my knowledge of feet and lower extremity issues with Eastern medicine. I like to think of myself as a soul healer, not just a podiatrist. Visit my new Flatbush office at 1911 Avenue L, right across from the Women's Mikvah, and around the block from Young Israel of Midwood. Or my Borough Park office at 1453 44th Street, or in Muncie at 4 Horizon Court. Please call me at 917-930-5800. That's 917-930-5800, or visit dr.soulhealer.com. The easiest way to schedule your appointment is through 917-930-5800. Your feet will thank you. Remember, the Shalosh Regalim are coming up. You need to be Raglei Mevasir. Let your feet bring good news this year. Yeshua's and Nechamas for all of Klal Yisrael. Don't give in to defeat.
You're listening to Talkline with Zev Brenner, America's premier Jewish broadcast on the air since 1981.
And now, here's your host.
And we're back. Our guest is Rabbi Dr. Natan Slifkin, director of the Biblical Museum of Natural History. He also writes a popular blog called Rationalist Judaism, and he lectures around the world on topics relating to science and Judaism. Let's take some emails. So here, Yosef writes, the reason why Hasidim have more children is because they get married earlier. Okay, interesting observation. Is that true in Israel compared to the Litvaks? The Hasidim get married earlier?
I don't know.
Okay, so Joseph writes that in the United States, during the draft, the USA college students were also exempt from the draft. Okay, interesting. They were exempt from the draft. So there are similarities, I guess, with different countries having students that are there. Now, getting back to your museum that you say is 10 years old, how did it all come about? What made you decide to establish this museum?
Well, for 25 years, I've been learning and writing and teaching about animals in the Torah. I used to do Torah tours of zoos for different Jewish communities. But then I realized that I really wanted to create a much more focused educational experience, which would have exactly the right animals, the ones that are mentioned in the Torah, in the Chazal, and that would be an indoor, air-conditioned experience. You know, it's not so comfortable to schlep around a zoo. So I decided I had to have to, create my own institution. So I did. It started off very small. 4 years ago, we moved into a much larger facility, 5 times as large. And Baruch Hashem, it's been tremendously well received.
And where do you get the funding for that? There must have been
it's mostly private donors. Yeah, we cover about half our costs with visitors and about half from private donors. People are donating for different reasons. They want to be part of something spectacular, or they really appreciate the idea of being able to inspire secular people with an appreciation of Torah, and religious people an understanding about how learning about the natural sciences in this regard can enhance your understanding of Torah.
You get involved with the Techeles, where that comes from?
We have an exhibit on that. Yeah, we have live Techeles snails. I've been aquarium with the live snails. That's part of our Hall of Shofars. We have a Hall of Shofars with an amazing display of shofars from all kinds of different animals. So, a shofar is something from the natural world that's used for a mitzvah. So Techeles is in that hall also, because that's another example of, this treasure from nature that's used for a mitzvah.
And we'll go getting back to the other topic. Here's an email question. When I was in school in Connecticut from grade 6, boys had compulsory gym for 90 minutes, 4 days a week. Our gym teachers were Army. We had obstacle courses, ropes, rings, running, wrestling, vaulting, boxes, military assembly, lining up at attention. We also had to shower together. This was to prepare us for the draft. Most of us in the past came from synagogues or church attending homes. The experience of intense physical training and bonding at school helped reduce the fear of being drafted. I guess his question was, does they have something similar in Israeli schools?
Well, again, in Dati Leumi schools, like in schools in America. So, physical education is certainly seen as being an important part of the experience for kids. in Haredi yeshivas, no, the physical education is not part of the curriculum.
Okay, I guess the gym is not, well, the gym is used, but not officially as far as physical education, where you have mandatory training.
Well, no, there's no gyms in Haredi yeshivas.
Oh, there isn't?
No.
Oh, well, I know in the United States, maybe it's different. You have a gym, they play basketball, but.
Yeah, again, Americans do not realize the vast gulf that separates America from Israel.
Well, I guess it's different. You have it's a different mindset, I think, in America too.
Yeah.
But in Israel, it's completely different. I didn't realize there was no gyms in these yeshivas at all, period.
No, of course not.
We say, of course, but...
sorry, no, because I'm sorry. I found patronizing anything like that. It's just, again, you're talking about a different world. It's Torah.
Okay, well, you see, in America, also Torah, but they also have some outlets where we have a gym, and I'm not saying it's the most professional gyms around, but okay, but you're saying in Israel they don't even have that.
In the Haredi yeshivas, in the Dati Lu'ami yeshivas, they do. So, see, again, that's the thing. Americans come to Israel. In America, you wear a black hat and you have a certain lifestyle. So you come to Israel and you think, okay, the people with the black hats, they're similar to me. But it's not the case. If you look more deeply, it's the people with the kippas rugot who are usually more similar.
Wow, different world. Let's go to Shlomo on the Lower East Side of Manhattan. Shlomo, you have a question for our guests.
No, I just wanted to reinforce your understanding of no gyms. In the Haggadah of the Haredi Haggadah in Israel for Pesach, the Russia is personified by playing soccer. They do not have gyms.
Okay.
They do not have a gym, and that's prohibited.
I'm surprised, but then I'm used to the American system. I'm not that familiar with the Haredi schools in Israel.
In the Haggadah, they have the Russia. It's not. There's 4 sons. One of them is a Russia. That's how we have it.
Okay.
Just letting you know.
Thank you for that. Okay. Did you know that, Rabbi Slifkin?
Yeah.
Okay. No, I thought they had to do more.
Well, health. People will talk about how health is important and so on, but the idea of doing that in any kind of formal way, and certainly not in group sports and all that, that's all seen as being something something goyish.
I thought maybe the reason why you had that in the Haggadahs is that you have a lot of these soccer teams play on Shabbos. And I think it was the Chazon Ish. Maybe it was maybe it was Rabbi Sonnenfeld, where there was a situation where he said, we can't blame the catastrophes because of what happened. They're playing soccer on Shabbos. They came from Russia. They were conscripted to the army. So we said he gave them a pass, so to speak. You probably heard that story.
Yeah. But it's an opposition. It's part of the seen as being the not an authentically Jewish way of life that they try and stay away from.
Okay, let's go to Avram in Kensington. Go ahead, Avram. Your question and comment for our guest. Go ahead, Avram.
Okay, and this is a vocabulary question. It sort of splits the difference between the rabbi and the zoologist. So if you want to beg off, I understand, because it's not a topic that you present. There are many terms in Hebrew for a lion. 2 of them are kafir and lavi. So my question is, I beg your pardon?
He's listening to you. Go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. So my question is, where is the age divide between these categories?
Okay, so kafir is used for a young lion, not a cub. A cub is a gur. Kafir is a young lion, so let's say a year old. Lavi, the precise definition of that is not clear. I've got a book, the Torah Encyclopedia of the Animal Kingdom, which goes through all these kinds of things in detail. You can get it online on the museum website with free delivery in the US, and the website is biblicalnaturalhistory.org. biblicalnaturalhistory.org.
Thank you. May I ask you for a sort of a derivation why a kafir is called a kafir? Is that known?
I don't know.
Do you know the
Okay, I
answer?
made something up, but I don't know. I was thinking of kefir coming from the word for covering, that the lions hunt from cover, but a 1-year-old lion does not hunt. So, okay, there goes my theory.
As long as it's not kefir, we can talk about it. Anyway,
okay, cool too.
Thank you for your phone call. I guess that there is interest, I guess, in the animal. Are there any animals that have been extinct from the biblical times that you cover in the museum?
Sure. Well, a lot of them that used to live in Eretz Yisrael don't live here anymore. I mean, lions, of course, are a very prominent example, but also leopards, cheetahs, bears, crocodiles, hippos. These are all things that are mentioned in Tanakh that used to live in Eretz Yisrael and don't live here anymore.
Okay, I guess the crocodiles are they still in the Nile River? Are the alligators?
Yeah, but they used to be till quite recently, till the early 20th century. There were still wild crocodiles in Israel.
Where in Israel were they located?
Nachal Taninim, right? Tanin is what a crocodile is called in Tanakh. Nachal Taninim, it's near Caesarea, and that's where the last crocodiles were found.
Interesting. And so what happened to them? How did they?
People hunted them. You can't really have crocodile-human coexistence. There was a Bedouin tribe that lived in the area that were being attacked by the crocodiles, and they hunted the crocodiles to extinction.
So John writes, attention, get your guess. If you're at war, why not put boot camp into the religious schools? Okay.
Great.
I guess, but the basic problem is not putting boot camp is that there is a status quo, and unless that's changed, you can put the boot camps. They're still not going to the army. That's really the issue.
You can change the laws, right? The laws that you have to go, but how do you make it happen? People just don't want to do it. How do you make it happen?
Well, they're not going to go arrest people because listen, they've had a draft and they've called people up and they're not coming.
Right. It's not. You're not going to start putting tens of thousands of people in prison. So it's a very painful, very difficult problem. There's not enough soldiers in Israel. There's not enough soldiers. It's dangerous for the country. What if, God forbid, we have a third intifada, an uprising in the West Bank, 2 million Palestinians? Where are we going to get the soldiers from? So this is a very dangerous and painful and difficult situation.
From what it sounds like, this issue probably will not be resolved during the current war situation. Hopefully the war is coming to an end. I guess some of these issues may come up more seriously after the war is over, when you have new elections and there's going to be a whole new political realignment in Israel. Even though I think Prime Minister Bibi Netanyahu has been bolstered by the fact that the International Court has an arrest warrant for him, I think has helped him domestically.
That's helped him, but a lot of people in Israel are people who used to be supportive of him are very upset.
Because of the Haredim and the army, just in general, because of the
just one of many issues.
Right. It's certainly that our guest for a little while longer is, he's been called the zoo rabbi, but he's also involved in science and he teaches science and lectures across the world, the director of the Biblical Museum of Natural History in Bet Shemesh, 10 years old. And he's also has a blog called Rationalist Judaism. We're going to be right back. Don't go away. Stay tuned. And if you'd like to participate, we'll continue taking some more of your phone calls. 212-769-1925, 212-769-1925. Email is a wonderful way to get some of your questions answered. zev@talklinenetwork.com, zev@talklinenetwork.com. Our final stretch, if you want to win the 3 packages of salamini, they're delicious beef sticks from Meal Mart. They'll send to your home. Just send us an email to zev@talklinenetwork.com. Please put salamini in the byline and give us your name, address, and zip code in order to qualify. We're giving away a whole bunch of those products. Thank you, Meal Mart. So we did another previous giveaway about a couple months ago. People really enjoyed it, so that's why Meal Mart is doing it again. So keep those emails coming to zev@talklinenetwork.com, zev@talklinenetwork.com. Today, immediately following this program at 2 a.m., you don't want to miss Nothing But the Truth with Trudy Stern, and then a new show called The Jewish Woman's Unity. We can use that in Israel. Unity policy. So that's coming up with Rabbi Natan Berkowitz at 2:30 a.m. this morning. And today's Sunday, we're on WOR 710 on the AM dial. And Michael Benjamin Anthony. He's fifth time in the Israeli army, just got back from Gaza, and he has a group called Miriam, and he'll talk about why he's so committed to Israel and defending Israel and the strong America-Israel military alliance, and how he was beaten up, his brother almost beaten up to death by a vicious gang of anti-Semites in England when he was 14 years old, and that changed his life. That'll be our guest today, Sunday, 9 p.m. on WOR 710 and WNEW 102.7 FM HD3. We'll be right back. Don't go away.
Are you seeking legal expertise backed by decades of experience? Look no further than Gurriera, Feldman, and Williams. For over 20 years, our dedicated team has navigated the complexities of real estate planning, including wills, trusts, and estates, surrogate court matters, and landlord-tenant law. But what truly sets us apart? Our attorneys don't just represent clients. They invest their hearts in every case. Passionate, committed, and relentless. That's the Gurriera, Feldman, and Williams way. Call us at 212-533-6800 for a consultation. That's 212-533-6800. Gurriera, Feldman, and Williams, the compassionate lawyers.
Tired of slaving over a hot stove? Now you can enjoy the taste of homemade soup without the fuss. Meal Mart's new line of shelf-stable soups are double wrapped and ready to be used in any microwave and ready in just minutes. Perfect for the home or on the go. Choose from 4 delicious flavors: chicken, mushroom, barley, hearty vegetable, and chunky vegetable. New from Meal Mart, homemade soups. It's like having a personal chef in your pantry.
A baby's heart is beating 18 days from conception.
Hello, I'm Marian Kuharski, the director of Pro-Life Across America. We're non-political and totally educational. We don't scream or scold. Instead, we help people working through unplanned pregnancies know their options, and we rely on people like you to help with our mission. Check us out on Facebook, YouTube, or at prolifeacrossamerica.org.
You don't have to be famous to have a memoir, a book that tells the story of your life. This is New York Times bestselling author Michael Levin, and books are my babies. Your children, grandchildren, and future generations can only know you if you put your story down on paper. That's why I created Jewish Leaders Books, a place where we can tell our stories for our loved ones and friends today and for future generations tomorrow. We're the people of the book. Now it's time for your book. Whether you have a dream or a complete draft, visit jewishleadersbooks.com or call Zev Brenner at 212-769-1925, extension 100, or Zev at talklinenetwork.com. That's jewishleadersbooks.com, or reach out to Zev at 212-769-1925, extension 100, or Zev at talklinenetwork.com.
WNEW 102.7 FM HD3, the nation's only Jewish FM HD channel, is searching for dynamic and engaging personalities to host our morning and evening drive radio programs. This is your chance to connect with a vibrant community and share your passion for Jewish culture, news, and entertainment. If you have a voice that resonates and a love for radio, we want to hear from you. Call 212-769-1925, extension 100. That's 212-769-1925, extension 100, or email info@talklinenetwork.com today. See you on the radio.
Hi, this is Trudy Stern, and I want to invite you to join me for Nothing But the Truth Thursday night at 9:30 p.m. You will hear nothing but the truth from leading elected officials and experts about world events and current issues affecting our community. So join me, Trudy Stern, Thursday night at 9:30 p.m. on Zev Brenner's Talkline Network, WSNR 620 AM, WNEW 102.7 FM HD3, and online at talklinenetwork.com. Hope you will join me as we delve into nothing but the truth about current events that affect our community most.
You're listening to Talkline with Zev Brenner, America's premier Jewish broadcast, on the air since 1981.
And now, here's your host.
And we're back, our final stretch with the Zoo Rabbi Dr. Nathan Slifkin, director of the Biblical Museum of Natural History located in Beit Shemesh, Israel. Here's an email question for you, Rabbi Slifkin. The listener writes, I understand that you have to be enrolled in a Haredi yeshiva to be examined. Not any yeshiva will do. Is that true?
To be exempt, correct? Yeah. Well, people who are in non-Haredi yeshivas don't want to be exempt, right? That's the whole idea. Is that the other yeshivas believe that part of being a religious Jew, our duties as a Jew to the nation, chesed, requires being in the army.
But also, it doesn't also affect Parnassa, because those that go to the army get certain skills, are able to integrate in society from a business perspective, which make it much harder if you don't enroll in the army.
Right.
So,
Correct. Yeah. I mean, if you take the army exemption, then officially you're not allowed to work. So, of course, there are a lot of people who are in the Haredi world who are not in the army, but also not in yeshiva. So they work in the black market.
oh, that's what they do. That's the business that some people, I guess, are engaged in. That must be a small number that engage in the black market.
Black market. I mean, just mean that they're working illegally. Right?
Well, what kind of numbers are we talking about that are in the black market?
They reckon that only about people in the Haredi community who are actually in yeshiva learning, people reckon is about 50-60%.
And that's what the statistics are. That's the numbers in Israel show.
Yeah, it's hard to know exactly, but as far as I understand, the assessments are that 50 or 60%, maybe 70% are actually in yeshiva, and the rest are not.
Not in yeshiva. And those are the ones that maybe the first ones that should be enrolled in the army, those that are not involved in that.
Yeah, again, it depends on your perspective. I guess those are the easiest ones, should be the easiest ones to recruit into the army. Of course, in the Dati Lomi perspective, it's the opposite. I mean, really, in traditional Judaism, it's the idea that the more serious you are about Torah and mitzvahs, then the more you should be in the army. And there's a dafka the people who should be most in the army.
Well,
it's part of your avodas Hashem.
You remind me, there's a story that was told, I think it was in Europe. The secularists put on a play to make fun of the yeshivas. And they had this play where they had, everybody getting ready for the army, and they say those that, got married are exempt, and those that have sinned are exempt. And then if you're consecrating, a vineyard, whatever it was they had, by the time they finished, all they had left was like the Vilna Gaon, and they had, you heard the story.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
And everybody, the curtain went up, and they laughed because you had like three, great rabbis are there. But they told the story to some, I think it was to Rabbi Zalman Soroz. He said, but they didn't tell the part that they won the war. That was the interest. That's the story that was told. But you're right. But there is those that ended up being in the army in the olden days, but those that were Talmidei Chachamim, were saints, were Torah scholars, people who were non-sinners. So they had a certain pedigree that to be in the Jewish army in days gone by.
Right. If you look in the traditional sources about being in the army, it's the idea of the people the highest level of religiosity who are definitely the ones who should be in the army.
But I think it's a way of just breaking the ice. That's what they're talking about, those that are not learning. But eventually they'll have to come up with a compromise regarding that, right?
Right. I think certainly it would be easier to come up with a compromise if at least the Haredim, and there's plenty of ones who are not in yeshiva, if at least those were in the army, it would be much easier to reach a compromise. But right now you have a situation where the rabbinic leaders, the political leaders of the Haredi community are saying that, nobody can go to the army, even if you guys are not learning in yeshiva. We'd rather Dati Le'umi boys who are learning in yeshiva go to the army than Haredi boys who are not learning in yeshiva.
Okay, let's go to Shai. You a question or comment for Rabbi Rifkin? Go ahead. Rabbi Slifkin, go ahead. Shai, are you there? Yes, go ahead, Shai. Don't be shy.
Yes, I just want to make a comment regarding the question Rav Lichtenstein from the Rosh Yeshiva of Aaron Lichtenstein, who did not have an answer. One of the students who was working with a tankist, he had oil on his army outfit, and he had to say the afternoon prayers, the mincha. So, and he wanted to pray like you're supposed to with clean clothing, but his clothing had oil stains on it. Should he take off the shirt and he could change and then he could pray? It wasn't during the war. This is a question from 20 years, a long time ago. he didn't have an answer. He didn't have an answer. He asked his father-in-law, Rabbi Soloveitchik, Yosef Dov Halevi Soloveitchik. And Rav Soloveitchik says he can say his prayers. He can daven with the oil stains on his garments because he's wearing Big Day Kodesh, holy garments. That's the view that they have towards it. That towards the army, it's Big Day Kodesh, holy garments. They're doing the will of Hashem in terms of in the service, in the holy service.
Beautiful thought. Thank you for sharing that. That's really a wonderful thought, and well said.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you. We've lived about 2 minutes. I just want to go back to the museum for a moment. You deal with all the dinosaurs?
No. Absolutely not. Again, that's something I discuss in my book, The Challenge of Creation. But in the museum, anything that's at all religiously sensitive, we stay very far away from.
So dinosaurs, are there anything else other animal-wise that you stay away from in the museum?
Conflicts between the Chazal and science, all those kinds of things that my books were about. We don't touch any of that in the museum.
Right. Even though dinosaurs is interesting, you can probably find some midrashim and others that deal with dinosaurs.
There's more recent Achronim who discuss it, Shor Tiferes Yisrael and so on. But these are precisely the sensitive topics the Haredi community wants to stay away from, and we respect that as an educational approach, and so we don't touch on those topics.
Good. You want to keep it par. You want to keep it non-controversial in the museum itself.
Yeah.
If people want to learn more information about the museum, how can they do so?
Best is our website, www.biblicalnaturalhistory.org.
Again, one more time.
Yeah, I know it's a bit of a mouthful. www.biblicalnaturalhistory.org. Or if you just do a search, for the Biblical Museum of Natural History, you'll find our website.
Anyway, I thank you for being here with us, and I hope that the religious divide, because the biggest challenge we have is unity, and it would be a shame to see that unity frayed, especially among the religious groupings. So,
well, I think the important point to bear in mind is that there isn't unity. People think unity means us all, holding hands and dancing and saying how much we love each other. But that's not what unity is. Unity means actual shared responsibility. Actually, when there's a crisis facing the nation, that everyone actually gets involved. That's really what unity means.
Well, I hope that we get together and we solve this issue, because we have no choice. And the security of Israel and the people and Haredi, every Jew, everybody in Israel. We just reported about a Chabad rabbi that disappeared in UAE. I just shudder to think what happened by her. And they make no distinction between Jew, Israeli. It's all the same to them.
Right.
And Rabbi Slifkin, thank you for joining us. Look forward to having you back in the future progress. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, bye-bye.
That's Rabbi Slifkin here on the Talkline.